Welcome to Story Timer at Large. Ruth E. Jones. Ruth E. Jones was born on March 11, 1951. She lived near Irvington, Indiana, growing up. That's a suburb of Indianapolis full of old Victorian houses and history. It's a great place to go on Halloween. Sometimes they even have these history tours because there's a lot of interesting history in Irvington. Ruth graduated from Howe High School in 1970. She lived at home for a few years and worked as a cook and baker for Indianapolis Public Schools. She had been taking college classes lately and was looking toward a brighter future for herself. At age 26, she was very excited to be striking out on her own and moving into a studio apartment in a converted garage in southeast Indianapolis. Her new place at 1702 East Bradbury was just a few blocks north of the University of Indianapolis. Like most Americans, Ruth had probably been a fan of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mary was a career girl living and working in Minneapolis, and she had an apartment that everyone thought was so cool. I know I did. The show ran from 1970 to 77. It was syndicated and continued to air in reruns for years after that. I can imagine that Ruth was a fan and Mary have inspired her maybe to get out on her own and get her own place. November 1st, 1977 was going to be her first night in her new place. She left her parents' house at 6 a.m. and traveled by bus to her new apartment. She had a sleeping bag with her as her furniture was coming later. She was just going to drop off a few things and then head to work. Just before noon that same day, a man with an old-sounding voice reported finding a body. Ruth was found beaten, strangled, and stabbed in the neck with a fork. She never made it to work that day, of course. Ruth never even got to spend one night in her new apartment. If you've read any of my earlier articles, you will know that the area around Indianapolis in the mid to late 1970s had a big murder problem. Pamela Milam, Catherine Kaufman, Terry Jo Ann Darlington, Ann Harmeyer, Monica Maria Mason, Linda Sue Ferry, Julianne Seafried, Christine Kovic are just a few of the victims of that crime wave. Police found that Ruth's wallet was missing and theorized that robbery was the motive. That might have been one motive, but I think murder was also its own motive here. Rape and murder seemed to be the most likely motives. Her clothes were in disarray, but police at the time did not think she had been raped. I think the brutality of the murder shows us a killer who just wants to kill someone. It's not even 7 in the morning, and yet this guy is this violent. If robbery was the motive, wouldn't he just have grabbed the wallet after overpowering her and just leave? Who was this violent? Stephen Timothy Judy was definitely this violent. His first victim and his last victims were mother types. Ruth E. Jones might have looked very motherly if she was dressed in her cafeteria worker outfit. Danny Rouse was this violent. I don't think Danny Rouse ever got too far south of his home base near Culver, Indiana. And him being there that early in the morning doesn't seem likely. Most of his crimes took place after dark. Jeffrey Lynn Hand was this violent. John T. Gibson Jr. was as well. All four are known for strangling their victims, but they weren't the only Indiana killers out there. I think Ruth might have been followed as she got off the bus. It was just after 6 in the morning. It was November, so still pretty dark out at that time of the morning. There would not be many people walking on the sidewalks or up and down, up and about just yet. Someone spotting her on the bus and following her seems highly likely, or someone in traffic who watched her get off the bus and walk across the street and walk to her place. I wonder what evidence has been preserved in this case. They said that Ruth fought for her life. Did police take fingernail clippings or scrape under her nails? Her killer's DNA could still be there. What other evidence did they save? What was she strangled with? Was it an improvised garrote? Are there knots that can be compared? Ruth E. Jones was only 26. She was trying to make a life for herself. She was striving, hardworking, and brave. Rest in peace, Ruth. I'll post the tip line to submit tips to police in this case in the comments under this video. But I have to say, there's several rapes and murders about the same time that I really think Stephen Timothy Judy is responsible for. And each and every one of them are women and gals who look motherly. He had a big fixation on his own mother, and I think the victims that he chose were either mothers or looked motherly or looked, you know, as if they could be mothers. And the way that Ruth was killed also seems like Stephen Timothy Judy could be the perpetrator here. I don't know if Stephen Timothy Judy has a DNA profile out there anywhere, but he was buried, and he could be exhumed, and a DNA profile could be created. He also had biological siblings, so it's possible that a DNA profile could be created if someone was industrious enough to get going on that. But I think there's a lot of rapes and murders from the 70s before Stephen Timothy Judy was arrested and convicted for the 1979 murder of Terry Lee Chastain and her 3 children. I think there are a lot of murders out there that could be solved. A lot of cold cases could get solved and closed if we developed a DNA profile of Stephen Timothy Judy. Again, Ruth was just starting out in life, and she deserved to be able to live her life in peace and with, on her own terms. Rest in peace, Ruth Jones.